Good evening, Steelers fans. Welcome back to another edition of the SteelerFury.com podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Coleman. You know me as Smith is Smoking on the message boards, joined by Corey Karbowski out of Louisiana. And we may have Will Masick here in a little bit. He is in the middle of trying to move. So his availability naturally is a little limited this week. But let's get started, Corey. I'll be honest. This is the first game that I was visibly upset that the Steelers could not find a way to win with how this game went. It just sucked that we were so close yet so far, all at the same time. So, I mean, how many interceptions we dropped? 3 or 4. I mean, and then, Pickett with, 3 more interceptions or whatever. And I thought that first one was total crap. And then to have the referee come on afterwards and say that should have been pass interference, that just, but I just felt like, gosh, that's just the way this game needs to start. And then Miami coming out like it's a damn triathlon, running around like they could do anything they want. Thank God we closed down the zone. But Corey, what were your impressions from this past game?
Oh, it was just really dejecting to watch. Like you said, I mean, even Buffalo didn't really feel like this. This game felt really winnable, and it was just like getting stabbed in the gut just watching it happen, especially at the end of the game with the turnovers. And Kenny's been good, but there's definitely a lot of room for improvement. And watching your first round QB throw those 2 late interceptions is it's heart wrenching to watch, really.
Yeah, I mean, after the game, I was dejected. I was on Twitter, I was pissed off. I replied to a tweet and it's like, I never do that. It's like, that's how it worked up. It's like, I never do that or whatever. But I mean, I think we all kind of knew this was going to be the kind of year, with Pickett kind of feeling things out. I mean, he's going to make mistakes. This is the year where he gets to just say, oh, I'm going to go out there and try to make plays just based on what I know I can do, as to where, in year 2, year 3, that's the year you expect to see the chemistry better. It's like, I mean, I think 2 of those interceptions to Deontay Johnson were both just kind of miscommunications, especially the last one. Even Roethlisberger on his football and podcast even said that, he thought Deontay was going to stop at the like kind of the pylon there, and he didn't, and ended up continuing going. But by that point, Pickett had already started to ramp up and throw the damn thing. So by the time ball got there, corner gets to turn around and get an easy pick or whatever. I don't know if our corners know the definition of an easy pick, just because they let so many go through. I mean, Cam Sutton, man. I mean, you will never get an easier ball thrown to you, and he just oh my God, just so disappointing there. Terrell Edmonds letting it go all the way through the breadbasket. I mean, honestly, I'll give Levi Wallace a pass on the one that he missed, earlier in the game, because that ball got deflected, like 2 or 3 times. For him to reach back and get that one, I thought that was a little tough, just kind of the ball's path and the ricochet on that. But I mean, good Lord, there were just so many missed opportunities in this game. It was just frustrating to watch, because all of a sudden we switched coverages to say, okay, we just can't let Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, run all over the field without anyone impeding their progress. And sure enough, once we went to man, now I'm not saying they didn't get their plays, but I mean, we stopped just letting them march up and down the field like it was, that the Maginot line, good Lord. I mean, they just went right around, but yeah, I guess it's encouraging to see the fight in this team with, how bad we started. We did manage to, shut down the run for a good majority part of the second and third quarters. Miami got a little more room going into the fourth or whatever. But I mean, kind of what's your thoughts on how some of these guys played?
I think there was a notable difference in the hustle, especially from the beginning of the season. And I mean, our whole defense, but especially that defensive backfield. I mean, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, those guys are electric with the ball in their hands. But I mean, how often did we see them get more than 1 or 2 steps without someone getting a hat on them and really bringing them down on first contact? That was encouraging to see. I mean, there's a lot of talent in that Dolphins offense. I mean, this same team that put 40 something points up on the Ravens a few weeks ago, and we held them to 16 in prime time. I think Miles Jack's been great. That's another point I wanted to add. I think he's been a very strong addition to the defense, and there's a night and day difference from him and Joe Schobert.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, I hate to say it, but everyone's favorite whipping boy, Miles Mack's running mate, Devin Bush, he's starting to play like the guy we thought he would be. Shoot, there was one play he was running with Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle right up the middle, and if he would have turned around, he might have had, got a deflection there. It was just a great ball from Tua. But I mean, that this is the kid we've been expecting to see again here, for the better part of almost a year and a half, and he's starting to find his way back to the football. It's like last year he was always a step slow because he didn't trust the knee. Looked a little slow to start this year, but boy, I mean, really in the last month, you have seen some noticeable progress in the elevation of his game. So I mean, he's been a very nice surprise. Because I'm not gonna lie, I was probably one of many Steeler fans who wrote Devin Bush off. Is like, oh, he's just not going to be the same player he was. He's not tackling well, he's not covering well, and it's like, man, I mean, honestly, he's playing just as good as football. Maybe not as good a football as his freshman year, but he's getting, or not freshman year, rookie year, excuse me. Different terminologies jumping from college to pro, but I mean, he's just looked phenomenal, honestly, just compared to what I thought he was going to give us this year. So, I mean, that honestly, it's nice to have two inside linebackers making plays like that and just making plays down the field too. I think that's the big thing. They're making plays down the field. They're not perfect. I mean, they're going to get beat, but they're at least in position to make plays, as to where last year that wasn't even like fathomable for our inside linebackers when it comes to defense. So, mentioning great throw in the middle, how about that perfect dime that Kenny Pickett threw in there to Pat Freiermuth? I mean, with the way the game was going, I just didn't expect us to really move the ball at the very end like the way we did, which is even more infuriating when you think about it, for all the struggles we've had to move the ball, to say, oh shit, well now we have to go get yardage to just magically kind of plop up there and get it. But I mean, that is a next level type throw that you only see a few guys being able to make. I mean, that ball was perfectly placed right on the outside shoulder of that defender whose name is escaping me. I can't remember who he did that on, but I mean, just what a perfectly placed ball.
And I think I have a major question. And is this the same case as the end of the Ben Roethlisberger era, where the quarterback would start calling his own plays in no huddle and magically the offense would start moving? Because it seemed like it was a pretty different offense when we got in that no huddle with Kenny Pickett. And it was the same thing as the previous year with Ben. As soon as we go into no huddle, offense starts to move a little better. So that's one thing that I'm wondering, is if, maybe Kenny kind of pushed Matt Canada out of there a little bit and started calling his own plays.
Yeah, I mean, that would be refreshing, because I mean, Tomlin's basically said he hasn't seen enough yet to make a change on offense. It's like, good God, man, how much more do you need to see of this bullshit? I mean, this is week in, week out crap. I mean, God, there was the one play, I think we were texting about it. It's like 4th and 1, and we ran to the weak side when we were outnumbered on like a key down. I mean, shit, even Trey Essex was pissed off about and tweeting about it during the game. It's just like, dude, this is, this elementary school playbook is just infuriating. It's infuriating, Corey. I just don't understand how you can come to work every day and see the crap that Canada's putting out there and think, oh yeah, he's going to turn it around, or, they're going to turn it around eventually. I mean, I just don't get the psyche behind keeping Canada in Pittsburgh. You know?
Oh, I mean, I was just so infuriated that I wrote a 1,800-word article about how we could potentially replace him. I mean,
That's right.
it's hard to even put into words how vanilla this offense is. Like, you can call it basic, you can call it boring, but if you watch any other game, pretty much, even teams with bad offenses, there's at least something going on. There's dynamic route combinations. Their playmakers are getting the ball in space. Just usually it's a personnel issue, and I think that's what makes it all the more frustrating. Is we have the guys to have a successful offense, and we are among the league worst.
Yeah, we don't do any of that shit on what you just
Nothing.
mentioned. We don't do any of it. I mean, oh God. It's just infuriating to see the lack of creativity in the routes and, trying to rub route and shit. Even when we do a rub route, most of the time we get a damn penalty called because we don't practice it enough to know actually how to do it correctly. I think it was 2 weeks ago that it was Claypool and Deontay Johnson out on the left side of the formation, basically ran into each other. That's how little we freaking practice crap like that. So, and I'm still waiting for the screen game to like a wide receiver. Where did this magically go to? Like, it's all we let Big Ben throw, but now we don't throw it at all. It's
no running back screens, no receiver screens.
Yeah.
We threw one screen, and it was a tight end screen to Zach Gentry, our best player with the ball in his hands.
You know what? You brought up a great point there. Why the hell are we running these little pitch plays to Tanner freaking Gentry? I mean, that is infuriating. How do we run that with at least Connor Hayward or something, who's at least a more athletic tight end, or for God forbid, how about you let your starting tight end in Pat Fryermuth do it? But we did it twice to our slow ass second blocking tight end. Like, how more creative can we be with one of the least athletic guys on an option pitch play? I mean,
and I don't even want to hammer on Gentry, because for what his role should be, which is a blocking tight end, maybe give him a curl route where he can go catch it out in front of him, he can do the job. But he's not a shovel pass runner or a freaking tight end screen catcher.
Right. I mean, that's not his skill set. I mean, when I think Tanner Gentry's skill set, I'm thinking, play action, high pass across the middle where he can use his 6'7" frame to go catch a damn ball. But no, we have to have him behind the line of scrimmage, catch a pitch, to the 6'7" guy who's got to come down and get the pitch down low and then turn up the field, which he's not good at. He's a straight line plotter, and I don't mean that to be mean, but he's not one of these athletic guys who's going to run away from anyone. And if he does, it's because they were so fooled, that he's already got 6 or 7 steps on him. So just the idiocracy of this playbook is just through the roof of just total bullshit. Excuse my language, SteelerFury.com, but I'm feeling it this week. It just, my level of frustration's through the roof right now. So, but in all seriousness, very, very, I came away very disappointed because I felt like the Steelers had multiple chances to win that game. I understand, Pickett made some bad decisions at the wrong time. I mean, especially that, I think it was that second interception where it was like 3rd and long, and was that the one that almost ended up being a pick 6 or something? They were
he had to chop him down.
You know what that play reminded me of? That play reminds me when I play Madden and I know I'm down and I've got to move the ball, but I know they're playing cover 4 anyway, and I'm still going to throw the vertical route. That's what Kenny Pickett did there. He's just screw it. I know I've got to go long to pick this up, and God, be damned if there's coverage there. Hopefully my guy can outplay him or whatever. But
Jeremy, I don't want to put you on the spot. What we had a manageable 3rd down, and then something happened. Do you remember what? Because I can't.
Yes, there were 2 penalties. It was 2 penalties because we had the illegal shift, which Kenny Pickett was smart enough to stop one of those earlier in the game. I don't know if you remember that, but he was put out his hand and he was just no. don't do that. We're going to get in trouble. And then sure enough, when someone went in motion, the right side of the line shifted again or whatever, like shifted in their stance. And that's when the flag came out on that one. And then I think we had a holding call or something on the second penalty, because right there, what was a 3rd and 6 or something turned into a 3rd and 20 something. And then that would, I think that's when he ended up trying to force something, which resulted in the pick. So
was it one of those illegal men downfield, which by the way, we have to be leading the NFL in illegal man downfield penalties.
I think you're right, Corey. I think it was a legal man downfield.
I mean, how do we keep getting these? Like, there's college teams that run RPOs every other play that don't get as many of these.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, I think Kenny Pickett, I think he held on to the ball just kind of a hair second too long. I think he was looking for something more and then ended up going, whether he was just a split second late on his first option or if he ended up going to his second option. I can't remember the exact, how that play happened, but you are right. I'm pretty positive that it wasn't a legal man downfield. And I think it was a Corafor too. I think, yeah, because actually now that I think about it, one of the announcers said, sometimes when you have a block that good, it's hard not to drive him down the field or something. And I think that's how he ended up down the field. It was just he got a good our offensive lineman got a good block.
You know what though?
But
I think they're playing a bit above their pedigree.
Oh, yeah, I would totally agree with that, Corey. I mean, I've been pleasantly surprised with our offensive line play, just with how bad they've been at points this year. I mean, I'm not saying we ran the ball effectively this past game, but there were a few times where we at least gave our running backs opportunities to push a pile forward or fall forward. I mean, and Najee actually got outside a few times and we were able to pick up some nice runs. So it's like you see, God, I almost don't want to see it because it's almost like giving Matt Canada some credit. But it's like you do see glimpses of this offensive line being able to do things.
Then let's give Pat Meyer the credit then. Line coach. Not Matt Canada.
Well, we'll give it to Pat Meyer then, Steelers' new offensive line coach. I'm good with that because I can't give Canada credit for anything. I mean, when you have a thoroughbred on the outside in George Pickens and you just don't look his way more than it, like I think he caught 5 or 6 balls or whatever for kind of
6 for 6.
Yes. I think it was like around 6 for 80 yards maybe or something like that. I'm sorry, but if you're not looking his way at least 15 times a game, we're doing something wrong. I mean, he is beating guys off the line. He's such a great contested catch guy. It's just I don't understand why we don't do more with him or whatever. And I think it was Claypool after the game said we need more go balls. He said, we have guys who can do it. Claypool, Johnson, he's a guy who can run and go catch a ball. I don't really think he's a contested catch guy. I think we've seen he doesn't like to fight for those. Honestly, while we're on the topic of this, I've never seen a guy not fight for a ball as much or as little, as I should say, as little as Deontay Johnson. And that is just infuriating to me. Like the ball's got to be perfect for him to catch it. I mean, it's just infuriating to see him fight so little when he knows it's going to be like one of those situations. It looks like he gives up on it because he's like, oh crap, I don't have a good play on the ball. I'm just going to hope the defender doesn't get it. But back to my original point, we need to go more vertical with these guys. We need to at least give them the opportunity or whatever. Because Claypool's actually played pretty well here these past few weeks, and well enough to where he's been the subject of trade rumors. That's a good segue there. What do you think of this whole Claypool might get traded thing?
I was not on record on Steelers Fury yet, but I was a big fan of moving Claypool into the slot. And I think that when we actually decided to start using him like a slot over these past couple of weeks, I feel like he's done a great job. There's just certain routes that he's just not great at. And those are like, these quick out routes and really snappy routes where he's got to get open off like breaks. But when you really let him run, he's great. Now, for the rumored package, I would ship him away in a heartbeat for a Christian McCaffrey kind of package. I mean, get him out of here. Like I'll pack his bags, but I don't think we're gonna get that.
No,
And
we're not going to get that. No way. Honestly, since you brought up McCaffrey, what do you think of that trade?
I think it's a lot for a running back.
That is exactly
And
what I told my buddy Mitch. I was like, don't get me wrong, McCaffrey's I don't know if generational talent's the right word, but I mean he's pretty damn close if he's not. And he's a really nice fit for what San Francisco wants to do with their offense because of the running lanes they can open with his ability to run and take off and take any run to the house, mind you. Boy, it should be nice if Pittsburgh had, a guy that could do that. But not saying that we needed to trade for Christian McCaffrey or anything, but I mean for Carolina to end up getting a second, third, and fourth round pick in this upcoming draft and a fifth round the year after was pretty remarkable because, I mean, like you said, the guy plays running back. It's not like he's going to San Fran to fix, the corner issue or the interior offensive line issue. It's like those are the two big holes on that team. And it's like you can't play either of those positions. So I thought it was, obviously San Fran's in that, Los Angeles Rams frame of mind, where it's like we're going to go all in and we're going to do whatever we can to win this year. But I mean, that doesn't even solve the quarterback issue. It's like people forget there's still an issue with Jimmy Garoppolo. So, I mean, I didn't like the trade as far as that goes, but I mean, Carolina got a steal.
I liked it for Carolina. I mean,
yeah. You can draft a running back in rounds 2, 3, or 4 to replace McCaffrey. And it's not like their cupboard's bare there either. I know we're going off topic here, SteelFury.com, but you've got me going down the rabbit hole here. So, I mean, they have Chuba Hubbard and Deontay Foreman, two guys, Hubbard played pretty well last year. He actually played pretty well on Sunday. He ended up beating the freaking Buccaneers. I don't know how that shit happens. I mean, good Lord. I know, there's
PJ Walker
of the NFL, but my God, I mean, who would have thought Carolina would have beat Tampa Bay? That just tells you how bad Tampa Bay is this year, Corey.
And we were right there with them.
Oh, I know. Talk about, we win that game, we come into Miami almost, pull off an upset there. So last thing we say about Dolphins game, just kind of disappointing that we couldn't find a way to win that one. So with that being said, Will is making his way to the show here. So we're going to start our matchups here with the upcoming Philadelphia Eagles. That's right. We have to play that team that's perfect and the best team in the NFL right now, maybe, potentially. They definitely are in the NFC. I don't think it's much of a stretch to say they're the best team in the NFC. That what Philadelphia has been able to do this year is just honestly phenomenal. Jalen Hurts is clearly taking that next step up. He's, a threat in the air, not just on the ground anymore. And that's even where he's very deadly, especially in the red zone. I mean, how many rushing touchdowns does that guy have this year already? It's ridiculous for a quarterback. I mean, he's, putting up Lamar Jackson type numbers. So, but just everything with what Philadelphia brings to the table, that their explosive offense, a great running game, a good defense, very good defensive front. So with that being said, let's kind of jump into the matchups here. And like I said, we are joined here by Will Massasak. He is here now. Will, always good to have you on the show, buddy. How you doing tonight?
I think he's here, Will Massasak. I can't, for some reason, I can't see anybody right now. So, there we go. I got the whole thing. What's happening, kids?
Not much, sir. We're jumping into our matchups right now. So, Corey, how about you start us off on the matchups here, and then we'll go to you for a good matchup.
I think our biggest matchup of the game and limiting the Eagles offense is going to be Terrell Edmonds versus Jalen Hurts. Terrell Edmonds actually has done a fantastic job on Lamar Jackson in the past. A lot of Steelers fans think Lamar Jackson's really, really bad. He's a great player, but that's just because Terrell Edmonds really shuts him down in almost every game he's played against him. So he's traditionally been our spy player, and I think that he's probably going to get the same role against Hurts. And I think that's going to be the biggest matchup because Hurts can really burn you on the ground with his legs. And I think, again, he's going to match up a lot with AJ Brown. I mean, AJ Brown's a elite receiver in this league, and Edmonds is probably going to draw the responsibility of spying and coverage. So big matchup for him this week.
Yeah, you bring up a good point on Edmonds. Edmonds is one of those bigger defensive backs or whatever. And, AJ Brown's one of those big physical wide receivers who can really run. So, I mean, I like you identifying that because Edmonds might be one guy who not only can keep up with Brown, but maybe even possibly, keep up with the physical aspect of his game too. So, Will, what do you think is a matchup we need to look out for?
Well, before I get into my matchup, I just like to say about that matchup that the problem is they don't have TJ Watt to go along with that strategy because it's one thing to spy the guy, but if he's got an open back door to get out, then it radically changes what he's able to do. And also he's more likely to beat you with his arm. Unlike that situation we usually have with Lamar Jackson where you can squeeze him in the pocket, contain him, and then have the spy on top of that. That's an awesome strategy. You're forcing him to make plays under duress. So that'll be, that sounds all well and good about Terrell Edmonds, but without pass rush really picking up, that's kind of rough, from my point of view. For me, matchup wise, the Steelers interior line did a pretty good job with some interior defensive guys the last few weeks. But this is like a defensive line for Philly is like on a different level altogether, much like Buffalo. They're loaded on defensive line. They have, they're like, the third wave of guys that comes in I think is that where Hargrave is these days. He's like in the third wave that comes in, and would be our best lineman right now, I think, so, or one of them. So at any rate, I think that's a tough matchup just because they just continue to wear on you over and over again. So to me, if I were the Steelers offensive coordinator, I would be thinking about things to tire those guys out and make them, stretch the field from sideline to sideline. The problem is it doesn't necessarily suit Najee Harris's game. He's not a stretch game runner. So, maybe that they still try to do that, but I think you'll see the Steelers offense definitely try to work horizontally a bit more this week. Not that they don't usually, but I mean, even more so than usual, screens, wide receiver screens. And I know that Tomlin sort of poo-pooed the efficacy of the jet sweeps, but I think you could see more stuff like that this week because it's a way of sort of having a safer play, almost like a running play, but against a defensive front that gets a lot of penetration and can really cause you problems for runs in the interior. Like between the tackles running is hard just because those guys, even if they don't play the run great, they're getting so much penetration on their way to the quarterback that they can literally play the run on the way to the quarterback. If you compare it to Cleveland's front, those guys are really aggressively coming downhill on the edge, and they can be run at. You can sort of run at Myles Garrett in a way inside his gap, but you can't really do that with a team like the Eagles because even with that wide nine, they kind of come directed in towards where the quarterback and backfield is, and it just doesn't offer you a lot of opportunities to unless you're going to spread your offensive line a long ways, which the Steelers have never traditionally liked to do. They like to keep the line pretty bunched. So that to me is a matchup to watch this week.
I just want to say, you said if you were the Steelers offensive coordinator, you would think.
I should have just stopped there.
Yeah, just right there would be an upgrade already.
Yeah, well, we already kind of railed on that offensive coordinator. I hate saying his name too much, but it's funny, Will, that you bring up maybe we'll go more horizontally and see some screens this week. Well, it'll be the first damn time all year. So what I made a point earlier in the show. It's like that's all we let Big Ben do last year, but we won't do it at all this year. So I just don't understand that either. How one aspect of an offense can completely vanish in a year. But yeah, I mean, you make a great point. I mean, the Eagles' defensive line is just different, man. I mean, you've got Javon Hargrave, and
Fletcher freaking Cox, man.
Yeah, I was about to say, I know Fletcher Cox, he's older. He's lost a little bit of a step, but dude is still a I think the term we like to use on Steeler Fury is an all-Mac war daddy or whatever. He's just disruptor. And then to have a guy like Jordan Davis coming off the bench.
It's
I mean,
wrong,
are you
man.
kidding me? Are you kidding me? I mean, and then not to mention Milton Williams has been a very good, wave rusher for them too. A guy in college.
I loved Milton Williams in the draft.
Yeah, I think from Louisiana Tech. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, he was that just athletic defensive lineman that you weren't totally sure what his fit was going to be in the NFL. Guess what, people? They found it. He's doing a great job at it. He's getting out.
Interior pass rusher. Interior pass rushers are kind of like we think of these edge guys who are sort of stunt rushers coming in the game and so on and so forth. But he's the interior version of that. And those guys, I think, are harder to find, really. So that's pretty cool. So nickel, everybody spends so much time in the nickel, and you need these two interior defenders who are boss, disruptors and pass rushers. And he's definitely one of those guys.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. But just, I mean, you kind of stole my thunder there a little bit, Will. It's just like this defensive line against our offensive line, that's just going to be such an issue all game long. It's like we thought we had issues with Buffalo's defensive line, which is very good. I mean, this is just as similar of a terror, if you ask me, because I mean, don't forget about, a guy like Brandon Graham, another guy who's probably on his last tour of duty, but he still gets after it game after game. I mean, Mr. Old Reliable. And then Josh Sweat on the other side. I mean, another guy that just kind of fell down the board to them, who's turned out to be a fantastic player for Philadelphia. And then don't forget another SteelerFury.com favorite from back in the day, Hassan Reddick. I know there are a lot of us that like Hassan Reddick. Talk about another guy who has made that pass rushing just an absolute terror on every.
I don't know about currently, but within a week or two ago, he had the highest pressure rate of any edge rusher in the NFL this season.
Yeah, so I think he's still there.
Yeah. It's just insane when you think you can have, not only like 3 or 4 guys that can rush you from the inside, but 3 or 4 more that can hit you from the outside. I mean, that's what makes Philadelphia so damn dangerous, is they just get to wave players in and out. They're fresh. They get to go all the time. I mean, I hate to say it, but I think Sunday we could be looking at a very long game, a game we might all want to turn off but by a certain point. It's just kind of feeling like that. But one matchup I will point out, so I'll actually get to that portion of the segment for myself, is I do feel like the Steelers actually do have some decent size at wide receiver that I think we might be able to expose Philadelphia with a little bit. But for that to happen, Matt Canada will have to put those players in the position to actually be able to use their body. So who knows there? But I mean, a guy like George Pickens and Claypool, I don't know why I can't remember his first name there. Clay.
Trying to forget him.
Yeah.
When he gets traded to the Packers.
Two guys that have those bigger bodies that, they're not going to get moved off as easily as someone, if Avonte Maddox is in there, Claypool could have a day on him. I understand Maddox is a real fast dude, but if he's in position, Maddox is not a guy who's going to move him off, the catch point by any means.
So you're suggesting Chase Claypool might be in a contested catch situation and you expect him to win against a smaller player? I'm just asking.
I know it's a confounding experiment, but
feels like we've seen it before.
Who knows? But I will say, I just do think that there is potential there. Marcus Epps, he's been playing decent, but he's kind of a smaller guy too. He likes to throw his body around, don't get me wrong, but just the two guys we might be able to take advantage of, at least size wise there. Cause I mean, Bradbury and Slay, they're playing, great, because they have so much help just from the pass rush, don't get me wrong. I think both are great players, but I mean, they're playing even better because they don't even have to do as much as they would on a team with a bad pass rush. So, I mean, I do think we might have some success, going after smaller defenders, but we might have to need more time to do that. Might be a game where, might be a game where we need to leave in that extra protector, make sure Pickett's going to have enough time, or else or as I heard this earlier today, and I don't know who said it, but we need to make sure the picket fence holds up. So yes, I went there. Dad joke, I know. But
you're too young for dad jokes, man. Hey, can I give you a bonus matchup?
Sure, absolutely.
I
Let's
think
go around and see if there are anything else.
I think we've officially reached the not that the Eagles necessarily need to do anything special, but I think we've officially reached the point where defensive coordinators are now a matchup against Kenny Pickett. You know, where they have now started to see him play a little bit and understand what he likes to do, what he wants to do, what he's good at, and to then try to take it away. So, I mean, I'll maybe throw it to you guys. I mean, like, I have an idea about what I think I would do to scheme against Kenny Pickett. But I wonder what you might think about the answer. Like, what will, if they were to start scheming for him based on what he's done so far in the NFL, like, Corey, what would you say would be what are your talking points for your defense?
I would play almost exclusively cover 2 and not let the Steelers throw a single out route and force them to throw deep and over the middle of the field.
Yeah, and I think I would complement that with don't let him run up the middle uncontested, because I think that's been his MO, is that if teams take that stuff away, those out routes and crossing routes, if it's not clean, then he wants to go up the middle. But if you play more zone, first of all, that takes he's less likely to run against zone. But that would be, to me, it's like exactly what you said. It's take away that bread and butter stuff for them, the whole shots and out routes, and keep him from running up the middle to use his legs to get yards.
Let me up the ante too. I think I would go exclusively 4-3-2. I think I'd let Nakobe Dean play Mike and let him spy Kenny Pickett in that situation. And because the Steelers don't spread the field out, it's one thing that I've had a big gripe with, is they go on these bunch sets where they bring him in right next to the offensive line with receivers, so you don't get any of the benefit of the run blocking. So I'd force them to spread the field on them and force the Steelers to force them to go into nickel, which they still have Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and Devontae Maddox. But
yeah, exactly. But I do think that it's a game where the Eagles could just play pretty much straight football because of the talent that they have up front. Like, they don't need to get exotic or blitz a lot or run any kind of strange coverage. They just need to put they have better players. They should be able to control the line of scrimmage. But didn't get to you, Jeremy. What would you suggest? Anything?
I mean, you guys said a lot of what I would have said. Rush 4, cover 7. Don't give him any just bunny throws that teams seem to give us at times. Eliminate that back shoulder outside crap. Have guys on top of our receivers or whatever. And then, like you said, when we go bunch, we don't scare anyone out of bunch. I hate to say it, but because we don't have the type of team speed to threaten anywhere out of the bunch, when it's a passing play. And our bunch players suck at run blocking too, ironically enough. So I think it's just a nightmare matchup across the board. And, like you guys said, don't let Kenny run. Nakobe Dean's definitely a guy, but don't, forget a guy like Kaiser White too, converted safety, now playing linebacker at a very high level, in my opinion, for a guy who's only really playing linebacker for, 2 years now.
Well, he was a B2B directional stager.
He's a guy that you liked. Well, so, I mean, his skill set, he can match up with Pickett just fine, because he's that, very good slashing linebacker, run around the field type linebacker. So, I mean, I just think we're going to have it wouldn't surprise me if we don't score a single point on Sunday. Like, I think that's the type of day it could be if Philadelphia really wants to
discounting the value of that Gunnar Olszewski return game.
Good Lord. Can Steven Sims get healthy? For the love of God.
One thing that's crazy too about this Eagles team is that we just talked about all their depth on the defensive end. I think they have 3 starters that are on the bench for them on their offensive line. I think Andre Dillard starts for us. I think Cam Jurgens probably starts for us. And Will knows I love Josh Sills coming out of West Virginia last year. I think he probably starts for us. They have 3 potential starters backing up their offensive line, which is just crazy when you look at what they've done with the defensive roster.
it's really nice when you move around the draft board. You trade down on occasion. You trade players for picks. You hoard top 100 picks, and you don't have a $100 million a year quarterback to pay. I mean, it's like the combination of those things, if you do it well, can really work out for you, as it has for them. So
yeah, that's a big reason why Eagles are undefeated, and they're probably the favorites in the NFC by a wide margin. I think at this point, I don't think anyone's really shown any ability to keep up. Even though I will say Dallas gave them a really good run for their money 2 weeks ago. It just they waited too long to do it.
Yeah, but division matchup, those teams play each other tighter than they probably would in real life, outside of compared to other teams in the conference. So yeah, it's possible that one of those two division teams catches the Eagles and knocks them down a peg. But yeah, I would say that by and large, it feels like they match up pretty well against anyone in the conference, and especially with the corpse of Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers helming their teams right now, which is not really helping their cause very much.
Right. This is
and,
a good
and the corpse of Jimmy Garoppolo as well. Had him in there.
Yeah, good Lord. But I feel like this is a good time to kind of segue over to the injury reports, kind of early for this week or whatever. But Corey, you mentioned a great point. How you feel like the Eagles have like 3 guys on the bench that could start for us. But let's kind of start there, because that's kind of where the Eagles injury report starts or whatever. Jordan Mailata, they're hoping he can practice some this week. He's nearing a return. Lane Johnson, another guy who you didn't mention there, suffered a 3rd concussion in the Dallas game, but they're kind of taking their time with him. But them coming out of a bye week, I just have a feeling he could be ready, almost 2 weeks coming off that or whatever. So, there's 2 offensive linemen they could be getting back right there. Some other guys that were on the injury report for them at this point, Josh Jobe, he's a backup corner, but 3 other offensive linemen were all on the injury report. Landon Dickerson, Jason Kelsey, and Isaac Samalo, I'm going to guess that's how you say that name, were all on the injury report. So their offensive line could be a little bit banged up. So, we did see the Steelers defensive line rise to the occasion this past week, actually play a pretty good game outside of a atrocious first quarter where we let Miami kind of run that outside zone all day, but they stepped up and made some plays the other night. So, do either of you guys think, if the Eagles are down some offensive linemen, do you guys see, guys like Larry Ogunjobi, Cam Hayward being able to make a difference in this game?
Not necessarily. Like I said, those, unless they're missing either 2 guards or 2 tackles, I'm just not sure. I think they have a starter, a guard, tackle, and center all in the wings. So I'm just not sure if we can get the juice that we need. Cam Hayward's Cam Hayward. He could step up against anyone depending on the week, but outside of that, I don't really see it happening.
And I feel like that's the formula against the Steelers, is if your offensive line can hold their own against the Steelers front, the defense is basically neutered. That's the thing that's the engine that drives everything else that the Steelers do well. So I feel like it's, that's one of the things that makes it a tough matchup, is they really neutralize the Steelers' strength. And maybe, if the guys are not 100%, but if Jordan Mailata at 80% and Lane Johnson at 80% are in the game, they're better than anybody the Steelers are going to bring out on the edge. So that's right away. It's like if you neutralize the Steelers' edge rushers, as was the case last week against a much lesser offensive line, then it tends to all not work so well. Kudos to the Steelers defense. They took advantage of a Tampa Bay team that is not really in sync, and they adjusted to Miami's offense and played the last 2/3 of that game very well against them. And perhaps a rusty quarterback. Just the question is, are they capable of doing that again against a Philadelphia team that is anything but out of sync and coming off a bye where they have probably come out fresh? That's a tougher ask.
Yeah, we didn't cover this in our matchups or whatever, but another tough ask is going to be, whoever we tried out there at corner this week. Josh Jackson's dealing with a groin. Kelly Weatherspoon, he's still dealing with a hamstring injury. So, I mean, I just don't get the sense that he's going to be ready anytime soon. Levi Wallace dealing with a shoulder. So it's like, we're going to be down.
Levi Wallace has 3 injuries he's recovering from right now. Still expected to play.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what, that's a Pittsburgh Steeler right there for you. But
he's got like a shoulder something and a knee or hamstring or something. He's got like all kinds of stuff going on.
Yeah.
Oh, he had a concussion.
Concussion. But so, I mean, and this is another team that's got plenty of speed at receiver. I mean, Quez Watkins was a favorite of mine coming out as, I think it was Southern Miss a few years back.
Yep.
But, I mean, Devonta Smith, kid won the Heisman. He can fly. We all know he can fly. And then AJ Brown is just as dangerous down the field too, because he's such a big guy and he's got good speed too. So, I mean, not to mention Dallas Goedert, is one of those big athletic move tight ends that can do both, the pass blocking run blocking, and then go out there and make, guys look foolish trying to cover him out there. So could be a tough ask across the board. So that basically summarizes the injuries for the Steelers, a few little nicks and bruises there, but the majority of our injuries again in the secondary. So we're just going to have to see, come later in the week, what we can put out there and whatnot. So with that being said, let's kind of get off our matchup here. Let's kind of dive into some more action around the league. That I feel like there are a few good games around the league. Ironically, I'm going to start us off with the Thursday night game, just because that's our shotgun start this week. We have Baltimore visiting Tampa Bay, and Tampa Bay is just one of the most confusing teams I've watched this year, and I've watched a lot of Pittsburgh Steelers, so that's saying something. But I just don't know what it is with Tampa Bay this year. They just can't put it together. I can't put my finger on it, but right now Baltimore is a 1.5 point favorite traveling to Tampa Bay. Will, let's get your pick on this one to start us off here.
I'm not picking Tampa Bay to win anything until they either snap out of it or play Green Bay. So I guess we got to pick somebody if they play Green Bay again. But yeah, I have zero faith in what Tampa Bay is doing right now. They look totally dysfunctional, and they just lost to Carolina for crying out loud. So they lost to a journeyman. PJ Walker was nice in the AAF or in XFL or whatever it was, the 2 leagues that he played in at that level, but that's just a shocking result. There's no excuse for that. So I'm picking Baltimore, although they have been anything but functional. They looked slightly more functional than Tampa Bay does right now. So I'm taking them.
And Corey, before I go to you here, I want to point something out. And I saw this on Twitter, and I couldn't believe it, to be honest. Both PJ Walker, who was in the XFL this past year or year before, I can't remember whatever minor pro league it was. Not only did he beat Tom Brady on Sunday, but Taylor Heineke beat Aaron Rodgers on Sunday too. And he was in the same league as PJ Walker. So, you have 2 guys that arguably took the longest route to the NFL they probably could, ended up taking down 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks on the same day. That's just astounding to me that, we're talking about as guys like Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers and thinking these guys lost both on the same day to 2 guys who, barely played, high level college ball to, taking the long route to starting quarterback. PJ Walker was the 3rd string quarterback for Carolina, stepping up to get a win. And then Taylor Heineke, arguably I think could have been Washington's number 1 this year because Carson Wentz is just done. Heineke's played better than Wentz has all year. But it's just kind of ironic that 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks get taken down by 2 XFL quarterbacks. So Corey, I know I got us off track there, but what do you think of Baltimore headed to Tampa Bay with a 1.5-point favorite?
I think I'm in the same boat as well, where I can't pick the Bucks until they show something. And Lamar and that whole Ravens offense actually it hasn't been very good as of the past 3-ish weeks, I want to say.
Yeah.
But I mean, the Buccaneers look horrible. Like they just don't want to win, period. So I think I'm going to go the Ravens, even though they have to go to Tampa. I think I can't pick the Bucks right now.
Yeah, it's perplexing because if you would have asked me if would Carolina put up 21 points on Tampa Bay, I would have said, get the hell out of here. You're trying to, take my money. And then sure enough, they pull off a 21-3 win. So, I mean, I'm in the same boat as you guys. I just don't know what's wrong at Tampa Bay. I can't tell you how many times this year when I've seen a Tampa Bay game, they pan over to Tom Brady and you can literally see him yelling, what the F are we doing? Like, it's like Tom Brady has no clue what they're doing. And it's just like, I don't understand how, in a year's time, how switching from Bruce Arians to Todd Bowles to still having your offensive coordinator there and Byron Leftwich, not much has changed on the offensive line. Like everyone's back, So I don't know. It's confusing. And I understand Gronk's not there and, tight ends situation is not different. But if you look at the commercials and everything Gronk's doing, he's done playing football. There's no
he ain't coming back.
Oh, sign me back. He is firmly enjoying retirement, and I don't think he minds the fact that he's off the football field this year. So I'm with you guys. I mean, I know it's a 1.5-point favor, but I mean, Baltimore just looks like. Yeah, I mean, I don't think Baltimore looks great this year either. That there are games that they've inexplicably lost, and hell, I thought that's the way their game against Cleveland this past Sunday was going. Honestly. But they found a way to win the ball game. I think it's going to be a very close game, but I'm going to take Baltimore to cover and win on that. So another interesting matchup on the NFC side, we have Arizona traveling to the surprise 5-1 Minnesota Vikings. Or wait, are they 6-1 now? No, they've hit their bye week. They're still 5-1. Minnesota is a 3.5-point favorite here. Arizona's kind of coming on here a little late. Corey, we'll give you the start on this one. What do you think? How this one's going to turn out?
I think the Vikings are going to win this. Well, you said 3.5.
Yep, 3.5.
Yeah, I think the Vikings cover that. I think they've got a good offensive talent. They've got Dalvin Cook. They've got Justin Jefferson. Adam Thielen's still doing Adam Thielen things. And I think Kirk Cousins is good enough to win a home game with a good running game and to distribute the ball. I think there's still something a little off about the Cardinals. They just haven't been what people thought they were at the beginning of the year. And I think especially being at home, I think Minnesota gets this game. They cover. Not a huge win, maybe a 5-7 point win, but still covers.
Gotcha. Will, what are your thoughts, sir?
The Minnesota Vikings are like this year's version of the 2020 Pittsburgh Steelers. They're the worst 5-1 team in the league by several measures. I mean, like they are in DVOA, they're 12th and 14th. 14th and 24th. They're 14th on offense and 24th on defense in the rankings, and yet they're 5-1. So you go figure. So they're kind of like a average football team. Arizona really has played much worse than that. Even I think Arizona's season so far has been worse than the Steelers' season, honestly. So I am inclined to say that Minnesota will win this game, but they're going to go to 6-1, and then they're going to play somebody good, and things are going to change for them. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a big on paper upset against the Vikings sometime soon, but I don't think it'll be this weekend.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat as you guys. It does seem like Arizona's starting to put things back together, and honestly, having DeAndre Hopkins back for the first time this past week, I mean, they went to him a bunch. I think he caught 10 or 12 balls, in his debut or whatever. And he looks healthy too. I think that's the big thing there is I feel like he tried to play through injury too much last year, and then having the 6-game suspension, he's fresh at the right time for an offense that really needs to find a way to keep moving the ball. So, but, if it wasn't for two pick sixes from Andy Dalton the last Thursday night game. That game could have ended up being a lot closer. And I think Minnesota won. I think they've got more established talent on offense right now. They're not dealing with the injuries that the Saints are at wide receiver. So, I mean, Justin Jefferson's, one of the best young wide receivers in the league, if not just one of the best, period, right now. Adam Thielen's that crafty vet, you gotta love a guy like that. Kind of getting old, but he's still super quick, tough to cover. Sorry, Will, you were saying something?
I was just going to say, is Justin Jefferson, this is his third season?
Yeah, I think he's in year 3 now.
I think he's already eclipsed the most catches and yards, receiving yards for any receiver in the history of the NFL for 3 seasons, and we're not even halfway through the season.
Yeah, I think you're right. I do remember
that's how he started his career. It's incredible, actually.
Yeah, so I mean that's just a young guy who's at the top of his game right now, and it's scary because he probably gets better, as he truly moves into his prime and starts to really understand the flow of the game. Dalvin Cook's been my guy ever since he came out of Florida State. He was my number 1 rated running back that year, ahead of some other notable names. I think King Henry was in that draft class, a few others, good ones that came out. So I've always been a huge Dalvin Cook fan. They've involved Irv Smith here a little bit here and there. Not as much try as I would, because I would really love to use tight ends, but kind of feel the same way. I just feel Minnesota is going to end up winning this game. I think it'll be really close though, because while their defense is starting to get better, that they still give things up. And Minnesota's offensive line, it's not great. They do tend to make some mistakes, some kind of just some dumb penalties here, holds, stuff like that. They get backed up a lot, but it's been overlooked because, like you said, Will, they haven't really played anyone great so far. So they've been able to kind of make up yards here and there with their new offense. So I'm on board with Minnesota. So let's move to another game here. I think the other big game on the NFC side of the ball is San Fran's traveling to Los Angeles to take on the Rams this week. Right now, San Fran is a 1.5 point favorite. Will, let's give you the start.
Well, as long as the 49ers don't drop a game-ending interception, I expect that the 49ers to win this game. They made the big trade, and it was like they sort of started implementing Christian McCaffrey into what they're doing, and I'm not even sure I'm not sure how much that moves the needle, considering that their other running backs were having a pretty good season. So that feels like a system where you can plug running backs in. So I don't really understand trading away a whole draft worth of pick for another running back. That seems weird to me. So they must have some mentality for how they're going to use them. It's going to be special. But yeah, I feel like San Francisco, the aforementioned Arizona and Baltimore, these feel like teams to me that are going to be a lot better 6 weeks from now than they are now. But the Rams are a mess. I mean, they sort of feel like they're they're on the Super Bowl hangover season that just feels like it sucks you into the abyss, and you can't even figure out what's happening different than last year. But it's really hard to come back and play it, repeat as a team at the high level that you played to win the Super Bowl. And they may still have a playoff run in them or something if they get that far. But yeah, I like San Francisco, probably, having most of the fans in the stadium and, going back to a place where they have a little bit of a grudge to settle with the Rams based on what happened there in the postseason.
Yeah, for sure. Corey and I covered, the McCaffrey trade just a little bit kind of earlier in the show. We kind of said the same thing. You gave up an awful lot for a running back. And
it was like what they traded for Ricky Williams almost. I mean, like, that was crazy.
To a degree, you're right.
First, but otherwise, yeah.
Yeah, I had a friend point out to me that I think a lot of it was just that a lot of it is relationships with that trade. McCaffrey's dad played for the elder Shanahan when they were in Denver.
Yeah.
Kyle Shanahan was around the Christian as a kid. Believe it or not, he actually babysat for him a few times. And then, not to mention, there's the Stanford connection. John Lynch, being a Stanford grad. McCaffrey being a Stanford grad. My buddy Roland Rainey, who's on another podcast I do, he kind of put all that together, and it's like I understand the guy, you really like the guy, and he's a great talent or whatever. But like you said, well, you traded for a running back. It's like, and you gave up a fortune for him. But we kind of already talked about that. So Corey, I'll let you go on with the matchup here. San Fran favored by 1.5. What do you think?
I think the Rams are inexplicably bad on offense for the players that they have. And the 49ers have been a little weird this year, and I'm with Will that they're going to be better in 6 weeks than they are now. But I think I think McCaffrey does move the needle at least a little, because I think they are going to figure out a way to use him. I'm not a fan of the haul they gave up for him, but I think they are a better team with him. And especially with Jimmy G at the helm, I feel like they needed someone dynamic other than Debo, even though they've really started to get Ayuk involved these last couple of weeks. But I think the 49ers run away with this a little. I think it's 10 to 13 point win. I mean, SoFi isn't a home field advantage, so I don't think that's a factor. It's actually embarrassing how little fans show up to that, but I think 49ers win pretty comfortably.
Yep, I'm on board with you guys. I mean, honestly, like you guys said, the Rams offense has been horrible. Cam Akers doesn't want to play for them anymore. They just lost Joseph Noteboom for the season. They're starting left tackle. And they were already having issues on their offensive line. And honestly, the 49ers are still getting healthy on defense too. Armstead's been playing sparingly so far. I think Bosa hasn't played much. He might be on short-term IR now that you think about it. But I just don't see the Rams offensive line giving Stafford enough time to do anything. I mean, don't get me wrong, Cooper Kupp, go do your thing fantasy wise. You can hang your hat on that all you want, but that has not been winning you ball games. So I'm with you guys. I think it ends up, I think 1.5 is kind of a comedy joke, being this early in the week. I think that's going to end up closer to 6 or 7 by game time, or could anyway. I mean, that I'd be comfortable betting that at least. So definitely have San Fran going the whole way. And believe it or not, I'm going to stick on the NFC side again, because we have two teams that if you would have told me at the beginning of the year that these two teams would be playing some of the best football in the early portions of the year, the New York Giants are flying to the Seattle Seahawks. I mean, if you would have told me that this would have been a game that we should have been circling in week 8 as one of the better football matchups at the start of the year, I said, you do know who's starting at quarterback for each team, right? But I mean, the Brian Dable effect is working. That team is completely bought in. They're playing great football. And then Corey and I touched on this a little bit before we got started tonight. Seattle's draft class has been a huge infusion of talent for this Seattle team, not to mention Geno Smith actually looking like the quarterback he could have been when he got taken all those years ago back by the Jets. So, I mean, Corey, I think we're going to start with you on this one. Seattle is at home. They are favored by 3.
I think this is a really fun matchup because both teams are really good at running the ball, and neither team can stop the run. And so I think Barkley's going to run wild. I really like Kenneth Walker, especially with how Seattle deployed him last week. I think that it's actually going to be a close game because I think both teams are going to control the ball in the sense of they're not going to turn the ball over with dumb turnovers. They're going to run. They're going to eat clock on their own. I think it's going to be I think Geno moves the needle a little more than Daniel Jones. I think both defenses are equally inept. I think the Giants have a bit better of a coordinator with Wink Martindale, but I just don't think he has the guys yet. And I think Geno's just better than Daniel Jones. So in a tight game going into the 4th, I think I'll go Seattle over the Giants, especially at home. You said 3 points?
Yeah, just 3.
I think I'll go 21-17, so a narrow Seattle cover, but I think it's actually going to be a pretty fun run-heavy game, if that's what you like at least.
Right. Might be one of the faster football games as far as the clock goes we've seen in a while. Will, what are your thoughts on this one, man?
I'll say 2 things about the Giants. The first is they're so much better than they were last year or the year before that. Like the year that Ben made his comeback from elbow surgery, so that's 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Man, they were bad. I watched their they had the equivalent of like an intra squad game that was on television here locally, and I was just like, man, they are really bad. Like his offensive line was hideous. So the improvements that Brian Dable has made since he got there, I think, are really impressive. And I salute him for that. The second thing I will say about them is they're the worst 6-1 team in the NFL. I don't really. I think it's a sort of smoke and mirrors at this point, and good for them. Bubble gum and masking tape and whatever. And I think Seattle is sneakily one of the best teams in the NFL right now. It may not last for them, and I'm not sure how much I believe in Geno Smith forever. I'm not like ready to induct him into the Hall of Fame just yet, but I feel like that team is a team that really banded together after the trade of Russell Wilson, and he's got them believing, and they're playing pretty good. They as Corey said, they can't stop the run, but that might be the only thing wrong with this team. Otherwise, they've been extremely efficient on offense, and overall, just like a good enough on defense, to sort of average to go with a really, dare I say, potent offensive attack. I mean, you compare it to what the Steelers are doing right now. It's like they've got nothing going for them, and yet their offense is very effective compared to the Steelers' offense, which has a lot of things going for it. It doesn't really seem to be doing anything, right? So the Steelers' offense reminds me of I don't know if you've ever seen a person who is not in very good shape, and they're in a hurry to cross the street, and so they make the motion when they're running, but they don't actually move any faster than when they're walking. Like I feel like that's the Steelers' offense right now. Anyway, Seattle's offense is the opposite of that. It's like somebody doesn't look like they're really moving so fast, and suddenly they're by you. So at home, especially against the Giants, Giants are allowed to have a little bit of a blip in their dream season. I'll take Seattle to win by much more than 3. I think this is at least a touchdown game.
Gotcha. I'm gonna have to be honest. I think this is going to be a tight defensive battle, and I think it's more because I think Seattle losing DK Metcalf is a big loss for them. He suffered an injury to his patella tendon, if I remember.
Actually didn't know that, but still, yeah, that's not good.
Yeah, so that came out late yesterday during the stretch that he would not return the game. They confirmed after the game that he would not need surgery, but his timetable for return is unknown at this point. So I do think that's a big issue, just because honestly, Metcalf's had a very good year at receiver, very quiet year, just because, everyone knows Seattle's running the ball well, but, DK's turned in a pretty good year. Tyler Lockett's missed a little bit of time, but he's projected to be healthy for this matchup. It's crazy because the Giants have no receivers that are, outside of like Darius Slayton, and the Darius Toney can't even dress for them. Apparently, I'm surprised that also, while we're on it, trade deadline coming up, I really see Toney getting dealt. I think they're going to give up on him here. They're going to let some team give him a premium pick. Probably day 2 pick for him.
Where is Elijah Moore? What team does he play for right now?
He plays for the Jets, and he's another guy who's disgruntled.
Yeah, those are the Jets and the Giants are both looking to deal their receivers. Yeah.
Right. But I actually think this is just going to be a very close game, and I think Seattle being home is the difference here. The Giants have not gone to an environment like the 12th man, the 12th man stadium out in Seattle, and I think that causes a lot of issues for them offensively. On a team that's not explosive offensively, other than just the running game itself. I know Darius Slayton can get a ball here or there, but he's not a guy who's going to consistently threaten or whatever. So I think Seattle, they do just enough to win this game, but I think it's going to be a low scoring game. This matchup to me just doesn't seem like it's going to be a lot of points. I think you're going to see 8 men in the box all the time against both these teams. I'm going to make each team pass over my head to beat them. And I just think Seattle's got a slight edge there. So I like Seattle at home too. Green Bay headed to Buffalo, but Green Bay is a horrible team. That I can't even get into that right now. We're not even going to talk about it. That's how bad they are. We've already talked about one Hall of Fame quarterback having a shit year. I don't know if we can do that again with another one. So with that being said, let's get to our hopeful 5-star matchup with the Steelers visiting Philadelphia. It just could be a very long day. We will see. Right now, Philadelphia is favored by 10.5. I will say the last time Vegas had Pittsburgh as double-digit dogs, we did find a way to pull off a win against a bad Tampa Bay team. But
And what happened the time before that? They were double-digit dogs. Just wondering.
Oh, you're right. Buffalo was pretty bad. You're right. God, you're right. I was wrong there. But either way, the Philadelphia favored by 10.5 here. Will, you get the honor of starting first?
In the best of times, and the Steelers have had some really good teams, including like the Super Bowl winner eventually in 2008. Going to Philadelphia was like the nightmare. Like going to Philly, going to New England, they were both absolutely horrible in both places. And I struggle to think of a game the Steelers have played in Philadelphia where they weren't horrible. Honestly, like, am I forgetting something?
No.
I think there was a preseason game, I think, where Ike Taylor had a kickoff return for a touchdown.
I was there for that game. I was there.
There you go. Was it in Philly or Pittsburgh?
I think that was in Pittsburgh.
So that's not even it. Yeah, so I struggle to think of a time when the Steelers enjoyed a good game there. So I don't expect that to happen on Sunday because they have far from their best team. I'm interested to see, the Steelers were able to, keep the adjust against Miami, and they were able to keep the Tampa Bay Buccaneers down. But we know that the Buccaneers not really 100%, and there were some very questionable coaching decisions in the Miami game, and a quarterback coming off of one of the worst concussions you'll ever see. So my question for this week, what I am interested in seeing is the Steelers defense actually playing better now, or have they just been playing well in spurts against teams that were not really together? Because Philly is totally together. If the Steelers defense comes out and has a performance kind of like what they did last week against Philly, I'll actually be impressed with what they're doing coaching wise and personnel wise with injuries and all that kind of stuff. But I don't expect that to happen, unfortunately. I mean, I feel like a little bit of a broken record. My prediction of Miami winning last week was on, but pretty much everything else about my prediction last week was not on. They did not score so many points that the Steelers, they did technically score so many points that the Steelers would not be able to match. But it was hardly the runaway train that it looked like it was going to be. In the first 5 minutes of the game, I was like, like this could be really ugly. My brother famously gets up at like 3:00 in the morning every day. So for him, a Sunday night game is the ultimate punishment. And a Sunday night game where your team's getting killed is the absolute worst. So I actually texted him and I was like, are you already asleep, or have you made plans to go? And he's like, one more drive, like one more drive, we'll give it up. All right. So I just, this feels more like Buffalo than Tampa Bay, right? Like a team that's rolling. They're not dysfunctional. They don't have the kind of injuries that might give the Steelers just some pause to think they could do something against them. Yeah, the Steelers are more or less back to, better injury-wise, but I think this is a tough matchup for a team that's even playing well, and the Steelers are not really playing well. So I will make it 13 Eagles in this game, and I think it's going to be a real celebration of the Eagles on the broadcast. So you might want to turn the volume down if you're sensitive to that kind of thing.
Gotcha. Will, you cut out there a little bit. What did you say your score was?
Oh, sorry, 38-13 Eagles over the Steelers.
Okay.
Corey's not gonna have 13 for the Steelers. I guarantee you.
No.
Oh man, how'd you know?
Take it away, Corey.
So
I was trying to be an optimist. Bring some good news to the show.
a whopping 13 points. If we score 13, I'd be happy. Like honestly, but moving past that, obviously I'm predicting a loss here. I actually don't think this game is completely unwinnable. Like I think there is a route where Kenny Pickett kind of gets it to click this game and George Pickens and him could go off, and he's hitting Pat Freiermuth over the middle. Like, those are all things that could happen against this team. And if the Steelers defense plays how it did last week, that's going to have to go along with that. But I don't see more than one of those happening, let alone all three. I think 7 points is a good prediction for this offense. I know damn sure we're not scoring 20. This is the best defense we've faced, and we haven't put up 20 since Ben's homecoming game or home leaving game against Cleveland, and before that it was a good few weeks. So yeah. So I don't think we put up 20. I think the Eagles get 21 points. I could see this being a 7-21 game where, I'm not going to say the Eagles don't take it seriously, but they decide to run the ball from the start and control the clock and just make it a quick game and get out of there. So I think 7-21, that it could easily be worse. I think the Steelers could win. Like, there's a route, but I don't think it happens.
Boy, I'm not gonna lie.
By the way, Jeremy, before you start, their formula. You get 5 turnovers, you knock out the long snapper, you get a special teams play, you get a defensive score, and you have a chance to win.
Yeah.
A blocked punt, a big return. It's very repeatable.
It's like the end of the season scenario, trying to get it's like the end of the season scenario for week 17, trying to figure out how to get in the playoffs, where you need like a 10-team parlay. It's a little like that. Sorry, Jeremy, go ahead.
No, you're good. And Corey, you have to remember, we scored 23 in week 1. But that's the last time we've crossed the double. The
offense did not 20. Score. The offense did not score 20 points.
All right.
For the record.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong, but you get my point. I'm kind of more on board with Will here. I think Philadelphia is going to be able to do whatever they want on both sides of the ball for the most part. As much as I would love to see Kenny Pickett take, another step, he still has Matt freaking Canada at offensive coordinator. So you just know it's just not going to happen until Mike Tomlin wants to make a decision that, quote unquote, where he's actually seen enough. It's just perplexing that he still hasn't seen enough. But Will, you actually almost stole my score. I was going 37-10. I feel like this is a game where the Eagles get I think the Steelers defense will have its moments, make us stop here, but it'll be after they're already in field goal range. So I see, probably four touchdowns, a handful of field goals, to make it that type of game. So with that being said, obviously I'm not picking Pittsburgh to win. I'm taking Philly to go on the unbeaten streak and path. Those 72 Dolphins will have to keep the bottles corked for another week. They made such a big deal about that on our game the other night. I thought that was a nice little addition to the pick there. So yeah, Pittsburgh's losing big. Then I don't think it's going to be close at all. I just think it could be an absolute nightmare.
How I said the Giants were the worst 6-1 team, and who was it that was the worst? Oh, Minnesota, the worst 5-1 team. Philly's the best 6-0 team in the league. That I can promise you.
Yeah, they're just too damn good, gentlemen. I mean, and honestly, I gave Nick Sirianni a lot of crap. When he first got hired, I thought, man, here's a guy again with no head coaching experience. Trying to bring a unit together. But man, you got to really applaud, the effort him and his coaching staff. I think it's Howie Roseman, their general manager. You've got to applaud a team like that can actually put a roster together and, and one actually believe in a guy that they didn't draft in Jalen Hurts, and
you
say,
forget
no,
not their guy.
Yeah. He's not their guy, and they ended up walking into a situation where, they're not paying, one of the best young quarterbacks in the league right now any money, and allowing them to go get AJ Brown, and allowing them to, get a guy like Jordan Davis in round 1 just to make that defense even that much better. I just feel like the Steelers are worlds behind the talent on that collective roster right now. So yeah, I think we lose 37-10, and 10 might be generous. Well, we will see. The parity in the NFL's freaking hilarious, with Tom Brady losing to a Carolina team that looked like it had honestly mailed in the year after they, sounded like they were going to start shipping everyone off their roster for draft picks. So who knows? Anything can happen. The ball bounces funny on any given Sunday, they say, but it's not going to be this Sunday, gentlemen. Mm-mm. So with that being said, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that sound effect. I'm not that good at it. But
Boom,
thank you,
boom,
gentlemen.
boom.
You just need to get a Will soundboard here so I have it ready on cue.
That would be. I would love to have had that myself over the years. So yeah, I'll help you build it if you like. Yeah.
I've given Will another project to do in his free time.
Oh yeah.
With that being said, thank you, gentlemen, for joining me on another episode here at the SteelerFury.com podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Coleman. You know me as Smith is Smoking on the message boards, joined by Corey Karbowski and Will Massasek. You know him as Bradshaw to been on the message boards. You know Corey is Corey on the message boards. Yours is a little more straightforward, Corey. I don't think you went to school today. They said pick a different avatar than your name, but
I've got my number at the end of it.
Yeah, you're right. You put some numbers at the end of it. With that being said, thank you.
You should have an avatar of yourself, in uniform. You like it's a perk that most people don't get to enjoy. You should enjoy the hell out of it. Like it's one thing you don't want to put up your picture playing football like 20 years from now. You put your picture of like college football, but like now while you're in it, absolutely go for it.
Yeah.
Right, Corey. You guys
make sure you're
flexing a little. Yeah.
A little flex. Don't flex in front of Andy Warhol, though. That's probably not the image you had in mind. Yeah.
No, it is not. But thank you guys again for joining us here on another episode. Always a good time talking some Steelers football with you guys. I don't know if we can call it that week in, week out, but we do our best. So with that being said, thank you. Go Steelers. Here we go to the draft.
Here we go, Steelers. Come on.